In this video, I'm going to share what a world-renowned mystic taught me about how your desire to change the world and your spirituality can come together in the most powerful way. Alright, you amazing human. My name is Ben Hart, and in this video I'm going to be sharing what mystic Andrew Harvey taught me about spiritual activism. Bringing together your interest in spirituality and personal development with activism that can actually change the world for the better. If you dig the content I'm about to share, go ahead and hit the subscribe button below. And if there is anybody out there in the world that you think could benefit from this video, please hit the like button and leave a comment to help them find it. Alright, spiritual activism. So, as I mentioned, this comes from Andrew Harvey, and for those of you who are not familiar with Andrew Harvey, he is a world-renowned author, teacher of many different spiritual traditions. He grew up in India, he's friends with people like Michelle Obama, he is an incredible orator, just speaks in poetry. And when I was at the Shift Network, where we did transformational education with millions of people around the world, he was one of our most popular faculty. He really speaks to the heart of a lot of spiritual matters, spiritual traditions, and ways that activate people powerfully. So this key distinction around spiritual activism, and there's a lot that can be said around spiritual activism, but this key distinction that I want to share with you has to do with the idea of a spectrum, from cold to hot. And what you'll find is that most of us are somewhere on this spectrum, and it would really help to understand where you are and where you may want to be. So on the far end of the spectrum of cold, this is where people, like the cliche of being really, really spiritual comes up. So when you think of cold, you think of kind of neutrality. You think of just like, chill, man, like it's all good. There's no heat, there's no passion, there's no fire. It's just cool. And so on the far end of that, with when we're talking about activism and spirituality, on the far end of cool are people who are completely divorced from the suffering of the world. You know, people who are really like, it's all an illusion, or are just about the love and the light. And there's a way that, you know, I'm speaking to the blind spot here. Like, there are beautiful things about the cool side. Like, the cool side brings us into a centeredness, into groundedness, into a sense of peace and ease and the perfection of the present moment. Like, there's beauty there, but on the far end of the spectrum, it becomes divorced from what's happening in this material world. And it's really a closing down of the heart in some ways, is what this offering is. And so then on the far end of the other side of the spectrum, on the far hot side, is where you'll find people who, rather than being divorced from the suffering of the world, they are consumed by it. It is just an inferno of pain, of rage, of anger. And that's not to make that bad. Like, rage and pain and anger are very important, especially at this time in history right now, with Black Lives Matter is happening. There are beautiful, important, very valid reasons to be angry, to be rageful, to be in deep pain. But the offering is on the far, far end of the spectrum. We can become so consumed by the rage that we lose any sense of stability, that we lose any sense of groundedness, of centeredness, of presence, of an ability to change perspectives and empathize and understand and be skillful in our activism. So on one side, we're divorced from reality, our heart is really closed. On the other side, maybe our heart is so open that we're just burning alive with the rage and the anger, and we're not able to move skillfully. And so the opportunity is to begin to see yourself on the spectrum of where do you tend to hang out. And a lot of people who are interested in spirituality and personal development tend to be more to the cool side. I certainly have been in my life. You know, a lot of yoga and meditation and a lot of focus on maintaining a sense of the perfection of the present moment. And there's, as I said, there's beautiful pieces to that, but it can really close our hearts. It can really have us not connected to what is happening around us and all of the intense suffering. And so if you find yourself there, the invitation is to notice where your heart may be shut down. Notice where you might have numbness to what you're seeing in the news, to what's going on right now in the world, and lean in a bit to feeling uncomfortable. Lean in a bit to feeling your sadness, to feeling your anger, to feeling your frustration, to feeling your rage, to feeling whatever the case may be. Let yourself feel more. You know, the idea of like heat being more of the emotions. You know, let yourself feel your emotion around the state of the world. And through that, you know, the beauty is that will, as you find more passion, as you find more of your emotional fire, that will meet your cool skill the cooling practices that you've done, such that you can have a centeredness in it as you move forward, as you lean into more of the activism, more of the passionate, ignited, sacred activism. And for a lot of folks, the fear is getting consumed by it, getting lost by it, getting lost in it, or not knowing what to do. Like, if I open to the pain, what do I do then? I don't know how to navigate the world. And my invitation is that you'll find the next steps. Like, you're bringing your presence, bringing your centeredness, bringing your groundedness, and allowing more heat to come. You will find the right ways to engage. You will find the right ways to be activated. You will find the right ways to lean in and support the changes that truly matter to you. And because, this is the invitation, is like actually being connected to what truly matters to you. Not just divorced from the world, but feeling the present perfection and the possibilities for so much more. So that's my invitation if you find yourself on the cool side. On the hot side, the invitation is, how can you find more centeredness in the midst of your anger and rage? Like, there's so much pain that we can get lost in. Some of my friends who are really, really identified as social activists can get so heavy and weighed down by it. And that's not to say that it's not valid and justified to be heavy and weighed down and to be rageful and angry and sad, as I said. But where's the place where having a bit more cooling, whether it's through meditation and yoga, or whether it's just through psychological practices, whatever can help someone find a bit more center, a bit more groundedness when times are really intense, how would that serve the changes that you're trying to create? So a beautiful example of this actually recently that was in major media was a black man who was at a Black Lives Matter protest in London. And there was, a group of people, and I don't know the full details, but there was a counter protester who had kind of gotten surrounded by these protesters. So he was against Black Lives Matter, and he was there demonstrating, and he'd kind of gotten surrounded, and he may have even gotten injured. And I believe he was like on the ground. And this black man, he was there at the protest. He was feeling his passion. He was feeling his activism. He was very engaged. But he had enough centeredness, enough groundedness to recognize this is another human being. Even though he doesn't agree with me, this is another human being. And it's not going to serve, he even said this later, like, it wouldn't have served the movement to have it erupt into violence where this man got hurt and then the story would become that. So he was able to have centeredness, bring in some of that cooling to be level-headed enough to go down and pick this man up and carry him out of the protest so he didn't get hurt. So that's a beautiful example of someone who was able to marry the hot with enough coolness to find this sacred activism in the midst of it. And it was a beautiful, it was on papers around the world, this black man carrying this white man out of the protest. And so the invitation overall is to just feel into where do you locate most of the time on the spectrum of cold to hot, and where do you feel like you could actually find more empowerment? It's not to say that like dead center is the best place to be. We're all different, and we're all going to have different moments in history are going to call us into different things, and different ways that we actually are meant to engage with the world are going to be right for us. But I do think that if we're finding ourselves on either end of that spectrum intensely, then something is off. And especially for people interested in spirituality and personal development, we tend to get really cool, and to create the world you really want, to create the possibilities of heaven on earth, to create like a society that really works for all, lean in to your passion, lean into the pain, lean into the fear, to the disappointment, to the frustration, to all of it, so you can find your centered, sacred activism. All right. If you dig the content I just shared, please hit the subscribe button below. And again, if there's anybody out there that you think would benefit from thinking about themselves on the spectrum of sacred activism, please hit the like button. Please leave a comment to help them find it. All right, as always, if there's just one thing you're left with from this video, let it be that you're amazing. Bye for now. Thank you so much for being here.